To go left field again, and because we haven't spoken NRL with Jipper now for at least a couple of weeks, so he's probably getting some sort of PTSD out of it. Benji Marshall, you both played with him when he was at the Blues. He's retired. What are your memories? Let's start with you, Bryn. Your memories of Benji, the stature he brought to that side, and the way he handled rugby.
Oh, I'll never forget. I think, Jip, you can probably attest to this as well. We usually have our during first days of preseason, you always have your yo-yo test and your Bronco test. I've never seen so many cameras for a yo-yo test ever in my life, and so it kind of just came to the magnitude of what Benji was at that time. And we were fortunate enough that he signed at the Blues at that time, and he was really open, man. He was really open and real honest around his journey. Look, he probably didn't succeed in the way he wanted to do, but he was pretty open around there, knowing that I've transitioned from rugby league into rugby, and I am struggling a little bit, but he was always open and wanting to know, and kind of had that growth mindset that I talked a little bit earlier with some players. That was Benji to a T. He knew that his weaknesses, and he'd be very open to the coaches, playing staff, playing group, and saying like, hey, I just need a little bit of help, or what does this look like, when it comes to rugby preparation. And so, and at the same time, he was a great guy. Jip can probably attest this, and he might have his own stories around it, but he was always a guy you could feel very approachable to. It was great for our young guys. Great for the young guys coming through. I was young at that time, and for someone that had given so much to the rugby league, and we all knew at that time how much of a big star he was. He was never too big for us. He never had an ego. He put his ego aside. Never had an ego. And so when you can talk to a guy like that kind of stature, it comes back to his upbringing and how of a great person he was. So I had great memories of it was only a short time, but what a great career. And I know Jip loves his league, and so he'll be able to continue on that a little bit more. But for me, a world-class person first and foremost, and then a great rugby league player, and very fortunate that I was able to spend a bit of time with him during that time at the Blues.
Yeah, well, I mean, he touched me so deeply, Bryn. I managed to bring the NRL and rugby union together with a flick pass against Canterbury behind my back, similar to himself, to Matt Duffy. So, it was, one of my big motivations was to pay tribute to him while I was still playing. So I managed to do that, which is great. But in all seriousness, one thing that surprised me the most is not his running fitness. We went to Ludus Magnus once, and it's like a body weight circuit gym, like ruthless sort of crawling and all sorts of I suppose fitness testers or gut busters. And I remember he finished about 15 or 20 minutes before everyone else, and it was his up off the ground fitness. You know how the NRL, they've always got to backtrack 10 meters, and he was just incredible, like all the bodyweight stuff and crawling and all that. He just absolutely demoed it. And I said to him afterwards, I said, how did you get so fit at that? And he's like, mate, that's all we do in the NRL. It's like that wrestling. They do the wrestle. They always go in the back, the 10. So they're so used to that, I suppose, that physical up off the ground burpee style sort of fitness, which surprised me. And then, although he left early, if you look at some of his highlights for the Blues, he was pretty exceptional, especially on that South African tour. He set up some beautiful tries and scored one himself against the Lions, and had his moments even when he came off the bench against the Highlanders. So he certainly had a skill set. It was just, I suppose, not the right fit for him, and he had an opportunity to go back to NRL, and he's still played a grand final this year, so it shows he still had plenty to offer that game as well.
Enduring. Players are becoming better and better at enduring long careers, aren't they? The way that they're looking after their bodies. You look at Ma, you look at Brad Thorne, you look at Stephen Donald even, you look at Benji Marshall. A 20-year career is not off the cards.
I think that's sports science. I think sports science has really improved and enabled players to know their bodies really well, and I suppose this individual approach to weeks to get the best out of you on the weekend has really come through in the S&C space, and they're getting the rewards from it because the balance and the knowledge of the player are being considered when constructing these programs for them to get the very best, because that's what everyone wants, isn't it? Everyone at the table wants the very best version of the players they're putting money and time into, and I suppose that collaboration and the growth in that sports science area of how to have that longevity how to keep everything, twitching at a fast level so that you can still perform at the highest stage has been a big factor.
Yeah, I definitely reckon that's changed over the years, Jip. That individualizing your program to like you as the individual. I think early in my career, a little bit, probably even to your extent, Jip, as well. Earlier in your career, pre-season was pretty much you didn't touch a ball from. Yeah, well, even more so in your era, Jip. When you started, when you first came in, you didn't touch a rugby ball from November to January to the start of January. You know what I mean? So all it was considered like, all right, just mentally, it's real old school around. All right, we're going to try mentally break it. We're going to do as much running with it. In hindsight, it was probably a detriment to lower tissue injuries in the long run. So I think the growth around sports science and being able to look after the individual and saying what the individual needs are, whether it's been bigger, you're trying to get a little bit, put more size on, so you're not going to run as much, or vice versa, and being able to be a little bit more individualized. I think the S&C staff and the understanding of GPS, heart rate monitor, and understanding where you are on the field and how tired you are, how fatigued you are, and recording those kind of results. It's leading to then being able to get you're more effective in trainings and when you are playing, and it's coming now. I wouldn't be surprised. Well, you look at Tom Brady. He's obviously an outlier where he could probably play to his 50, 55. But like those kind of ideas around like making what's the best for you and what's going to get you to play more and being able to get the best out of you moving forward is a really individualized approach. And I think S&C staff and rugby has got a lot better in that department.